Yeah, so we have quite a few things to talk about when it comes to this Detroit Red Wings team. And I'm kind of debating to myself internally whether or not to respond to some of the radio discourse that's been tossed around there in regards to Steve Yzerman. Not calling anybody out, not naming any names, not lambasting anybody over here, but there were a few interesting radio segments that I saw in the Michigan area that were talking about the Red Wings and whether or not Stevie Y could get fired. If we have some extra time at the end of this video, maybe we can dive into that, but I'm not too sure if that's a conversation that most fans want to have at this point in time. Today, though, we are talking about some of the latest Detroit Red Wings news and notes heading into Sunday, March 9th. This show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Go out there and check out that first link in the description to save some money on your VPN, get some free months, and support this YouTube channel in the process. Let's go out there and talk about three things, because one of these conversations I think is really bad for the Red Wings. One is kind of mid, it's not really all too important, but it is worth talking about. And the other is very, very good. So let's go from bad to better in this video commentary and start things off by talking about Jake Walman. We made this YouTube video a few days ago talking about the Walman trade from San Jose over to Edmonton. And when the video was made, we didn't know the details yet. We said that, hey, we already recognize that the guy is going to get traded, and that in itself is the video topic. The full Walman trade goes as follows. The Edmonton Oilers acquired Jake Walman in exchange for Carl Berglund and a conditional first-round pick in the 2026 NHL entry draft. Oh boy. The reason this is a big deal, quote-unquote, for the Detroit Red Wings and Steve Yzerman is because you may remember Jake Walman was traded from Detroit to San Jose with a draft pick for nothing. Steve Yzerman had this idea in his mind that Jake Walman was not the guy to continue playing meaningful, significant, positively contributing hockey to the Detroit Red Wings, and thus paid a price to get him off the team. He could have waived Walman. He could have lost him out for free that way. But instead, Stevie Y sends Walman to the San Jose Sharks with that draft pick for future considerations. A move that so many of us were gobsmacked, befuddled by. Stevie Y, what are you doing? This guy scored however many points he did last year. Like, he was a 20-point defenseman last season for the Detroit Red Wings. Had 12 goals. Firstly, for what reason was there to trade this guy away? Secondly, what reason was there to trade this guy away with a draft pick? You couldn't trade him for any sort of draft capital? If you were interested in letting this guy go for free, you didn't want to have him on your roster anymore, just send him down on waivers. He would have gotten claimed instantly. It was a befuddling decision back then. It's an even more befuddling decision now when you acknowledge that Jake Walman got sent over for a first-round pick and another guy. Like, the Detroit Red Wings, man. I think a lot of us thought that that trade was a fumble back when it was made. It seems even more like a fumble now when the Red Wings are looking at their situation like, hey, we gave up this draft pick to get rid of a guy that ended up getting traded for another draft pick. And a better one at that. The San Jose Sharks walk out of this Jake Walman situation, getting a free draft pick from Detroit to take on the contract, and then getting a conditional first and the other player from Edmonton to send him over there. And there's like no salary retained or anything like that. It's just a regular old guy getting moved. What in the world is going on with Steve Yzerman's perception of Jake Walman that will never be understood to me? It does not feel like something that should have gone through. But regardless, let's talk about the trades that the Red Wings actually did make. They did make themselves an acquisition of Peter Mrazek in the Joe Veleno deal. It was Mrazek and Smith, very nothing trade when you're thinking about the forwards coming in and the forwards coming out. Smith and Veleno don't really move the needle too much, but the value here for Detroit is Peter Mrazek. And if you wanted to talk about what exactly this spells for some of the other players in the Red Wings organization, This is a conversation that was brought up by George Malik on his Twitter account. Of course, he's the guy who runs the Malik Report, which is a Red Wings blog, but he goes out there and says this on Twitter: has there been a shift in terms of the perception of Jack Campbell's return and growth? Teams generally do not carry 3 goalies at the NHL or AHL levels. They don't play as many games at the AHL level, and that makes it a challenge to give 3 guys starts. They have Sebastian Cossa, whom they want to give starts to. They knew Jack Campbell was there, but there was an abundance of goaltenders, and they knew they would have to move one as they went on. They hammed and egged it with injuries, but later in the season they were able to move Ville Husso to get everyone playing. And when they moved Ville to Anaheim, he's making a lot of money playing in the AHL with the San Diego Gulls. They wanted Jack Campbell and Sebastian Cossa to play and give Husso the chance to play while moving the contract. At the time, they were comfortable with Alex and Cam in Detroit, but if you want goalies to be sharp, you need them playing. Especially down in the minors, it's even harder, so they'll carry the 3 in Detroit. It's important to have a number 3 here. They feel good about that, and who is that number 3? Now, I'll admit, this tweet is like 90% just rambling about whatever situation is there. It's not really coherent. You can't even really see the punctuation. But it does beg an interesting question as to what the Wings' plans could be with goaltender Jack Campbell, who is on a 1-year contract. It's expiring at the end of the season, and yesterday there was a really bad play that Campbell did in the AHL where he ended up falling behind his net, and it led to a very easy tap-in goal for the opponent in front. The guy has an .882 save percentage in the AHL this year. He's not looking good. 301 goals against average in 11 games played for Jack Campbell. The guy is in a really tough spot. After getting bought out last season, really falling from grace from the goaltender that he was in Toronto, it's been a really tough go for Jack Campbell, and you honestly kind of feel bad for the guy at this point. I don't know about you, but I feel kind of bad. He was such a good goalie a few years ago, but totally fell off a cliff in Edmonton, has not been able to regain any of that momentum in the Detroit farm system. And now with Peter Mrazek signed on, because he's got a few extra years past this season, with Alex Lyon potentially maybe getting the boot, who really knows, and Sebastian Cossa cooking down there in the AHL, I'm not really too sure if Jack Campbell has any sort of a significant part of the Red Wings' future at this point. It would be kind of crazy if they re-signed him, to be honest. 33 years old, he's already in the latter half of his career. There's no way I think Jack Campbell ever finds his way into an NHL roster again, and even in the AHL he has been not looking great, so who knows what's going to happen there. It doesn't really seem too confident for him and his progression. But to end off this video, let's go over to some positive news. Really positive news for the Detroit Red Wings, because there was a post made about Axel Sandin Pellikka. Take a look at this. With a goal that ASP scored yesterday, Red Wings draftee breaks the record for most goals by a junior-age defender in SHL history. An absolutely massive feat for the unique Red Wings prospect. So there you go. Finally, Axel Sandin Pellikka has gone out there and shattered worlds in the SHL this season for Skellefteå AIK. He's got 12 goals and 28 total points on the season for 45 games played. He's got one more game, so we'll see what he's able to do there. But if you head over to the history books in the SHL and you sort by total U20 defenders, which is the junior age range, U20, you will see that Axel Sandin Pellikka is second in terms of overall points. He needs 3 more points to tie Nils Lundqvist and then 4 more points to beat him. I don't think ASP gets 4 points in his final game. But he does have the most goals. He did overtake Lundqvist with the goal he had scored the other day. So now ASP is legitimately putting himself in the history books here. Take a look at that, eh? Amongst junior defenders in SHL history, the Red Wings have 3 of the top guys in goals. 4 if you include Seider at number 12. Now, maybe that doesn't really sound right because Axel Sandin Pellikka is on the list twice, but Seider, Albert Johansson, they're all there too. So I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about all these Red Wings news and notes, from the Jake Wallman trade fallout to Jack Campbell and his AHL career going as poorly as it has, as well as Axel Sandin Pellikka breaking the records that he's been breaking. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.